Ibn Khaldun once described Cairo as the center of the universe and garden of the world. Do you know that during that time, Cairo was ruled by the Mumluk Empire? Today, I, Muhammad Zulfaqar bin Nazuri, with metro number 18136 will present to you the architecture of the Mumluk Empire. Mamluk can be defined as slave or owned by people. However, unlike Abdul, Mamluk originally is not a Muslim, and it is specifically to Turkish, Caucasian, and Rome people. Mamluk was first bought by Khalifa Muta'asim to become a soldier because during that time Abbasid Empire has to face the threat of crusaders. The next sultan is Sultan Zahir al-Baybars. He was very known because he managed to bring the prosper in the Mamluk Empire. Then he opened trade up with Spain. He also maintained the relationship with the Italian maritime states, and he managed to defend Egypt and Syria from the threat of Crusaders and Mongol. And the last one, he managed to bring back the Caliphate, Abbasid Caliphate, although he was meant to be his puppet. The next noticeable sultan in Bahrikli is Sultan Kolawud. He was very known because he followed the policy that was made by Sultan Zahir al-Baybars. Then he made a diplomatic with Mongol Empire in the Golden Horde, and last, he built many infrastructures for Egyptians such as Bimaristan al-Mansuri. Next, we're going to talk about Mamluk Burji. It was ruled by 23 sultans for 134 years. It was founded by Sultan al-Zahir al-Barkuk as they managed to overthrow the last sultans of the Mamluk Bahri. Mamluk Burji reached its peak during Sultan al-Ashraf Qaitbay because his ability to control and manage the political crises with other empires such as Ottoman Empire. However, this sultanate ended when Sultan al-Ashraf Abu al-Nasir was defeated by the Ottoman Empire that was led by Sultan Salim in 1517 Masehi. Mamluk sultans were known for their zealous patronage in art and architecture. Mamluk Islamic architecture oftentimes categorized by the ring of the major sultan rather than a specific designs. Each architecture reflected the individual's taste, choices, and name. All of them prefer to build several mosques in the capital instead of a large colossal monument because these projects act as charitable function and social service. For example, mausoleum, mosque, khanqah, madrasa, hospitals, and maktab. The buildings or institutions were protected by the Waqf agreement, which gave the sultans trusts which were inalienably by the Islamic law. These charitable projects publicly demonstrated the sultan's piousness and strengthened their symbolic role as the protector of Sunni Islam. These endowments also served as a financial future for the sultan's family. This is because the Mamluk Sultanate was non-hereditary. The sultan's family and descendants could benefit by retaining control of various Waqf establishments he built and take some of the revenues as a tax-free income. Interestingly, this cannot be annulled by the regimes of the subsequent sultans. Sadly, in 1517, the Mamluk architecture was brought to an end due to the conquest of the Ottoman Empire. There are two prominent features of the Mamluk architecture. The first one is the dome and the second one is the minaret. The minaret exterior usually carved with stones. The patrons use these visual attributes to express their individuality by decorating each dome and minaret in distinct designs such as zigzag and rib designs, flower and star designs, and mollusk design. The minaret would be three-tier minaret. It might be has a square base followed by an octagonal shaft and preceded by a circular shaft. However, the upper part may be colonnaded. Other minaret sections such as fully octagonal shaft are also common. For example, Sultan Muayyad Mosque in the Cairo, Egypt. During Mamluk era, there was a development of street-adjusted Zulfaqar. This to enhance the street vista. Generally, the Mamluk buildings are not symmetry because during that time they tend to emphasize the use of balance instead of symmetry in their overall compositions. The building's alignment are adjusted to the different direction of streets and Qibla are also emphasized. For example, Al-Qamar Mosque in Cairo, Egypt. It was the very first mosque that adjusted to different directions of the streets. We can see some influences in the Mamluk architecture. The first one is the 4E1 plan. It was introduced earlier in the architecture of Egypt and Syria by the Ayyubid and Zengid Empire. Later, it emerged as the most common plan for religious buildings of Mamluk, including mosque and madrasa. These mosque and madrasa sometimes accompanied by a mausoleum to indicate the patrons. For example, Mosque Madrasa Sultan Hassan in Cairo, Egypt. For your information, an E1 is a vaulted space that opens to one side of the courtyard. In this type of mosque, the Qibla E1 that faces the Kaaba, said to be the largest and well ornately decorated. The 4E1s are said to devote the four school of thoughts in Sunni Islamic jurisprudence. Sometimes in this type of mosque, you can find an ablution fountain in the middle that's surrounded by the four monumental E1. The next influence can be seen in the Mamluk architecture is the Ablaq technique. It was a technique that introduced during the late period of Ayyubid Empire. It later became widespread and even a characteristic of Mamluk architecture. Ablaq technique is a technique of alternating or fluctuating the light and dark stones. You can see this type of technique in Mosque Madrasa Sultan Hassan in Cairo, Egypt. Contemporary buildings that has Mamluk Empire influence is Sri Sendayan Mosque in Negeri Sembilan, Malaysia. It is the largest mosque in Negeri Sembilan. Sometimes people call it as Taj Mahal, Masjid Nabawi, or Ottoman Empire due to stunning architectural elements. If you go there, you can find dining halls, lecture halls, library, multi-purpose halls, and even 6 rooms for the staffs. It was endowed by the founder of RHB Group banking company, Tan Sri Abdul Rashid Hussain. Was designed interiorly by Tuan Haji Zana Yusuf as interior contractor and got the design from Turkey, Egypt, Dubai, Maghrebi, and China. That's all for my presentation. Thank you. See you later.